Good evening. Sorry, I'm so used to saying good evening, but this is a noon event. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Northshire Presents virtual event. I'm very excited about today's event. It's going to be really special, and it's a very special one. But before things get started, just a few quick notes. My name is David Wood. I'm the events manager at Northshire's Manchester, Vermont location, and I'm here so often with my good friend and colleague Rachel Person, the events manager at Northshire's Saratoga Springs location. Real quickly, if you have questions at any point during this event, please type them into the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. After the cooking demonstration, we'll save those up for you and pose them ourselves at the end of the event. And lastly, before I hand things over to Rachel to introduce our author, a note of thanks. Independent book selling is a challenge in the best of times. And so we owe our continued existence to your support, and we are deeply grateful for it. Thanks so much. Rachel.
Thanks, David. I'm so excited to be the one to get to introduce Vedika Luthra today. She is the baker behind the awesome and truly mouthwatering Hot Chocolate Hits YouTube channel and is with us today to talk about her cookbook, 52 Weeks, 52 Sweets. Please join me in welcoming her to our screens today.
Hi, everyone. So I'm here to present my cookbook, 52 Weeks, 52 Sweets. So it's a book that I wrote while I was studying full time. It's a book that's very special to me because it's both seasonal and cultural. So I grew up between India, Poland, and the Netherlands. And so the book kind of has recipes from all three of those. And today I wanted to share with you a recipe actually from the December section of the cookbook, because it's really quick and easy to make and you can make it all year round. And it's also perfect to start the holiday season. So let me see if I can just find it really quickly. Luckily, since it's at the back of the book, you can find it pretty quickly, I hope. Still taking a bit of time. Oh, I had it and then I just lost it. So maybe I'll have to turn to the index for it. But in any case, it's available on Amazon, and you can buy it also in the form of an ebook if you prefer. And it's also on cookbook.com because if you want to buy each recipe individually. But for now, we're just gonna make one from the book. So today we're making a chocolate log. It's actually called a chocolate salami, but my editors told me that the chocolate log sounded nicer because people would be put off by the idea of a chocolate salami. But in Europe, it's actually quite popular, especially in Italy. And if you can see, like, it's something that you can slice. So it's almost like a slice and bake cookie, but it's a no bake recipe. So it's super easy to make. Oh, there's a comment. There's something in the comment. Just the link to the book. So how we start this recipe, I have here some crushed cookies. So these are just tea biscuits. You can also use graham crackers or any sort of cookie that you like. And to this, I'm going to add some walnuts. And I'm just going to give it a quick mix together. And then you can just set it aside for a little bit. So now here I have a saucepan to which I'm going to add some heavy whipping cream. So this is about, we have it in percentages in Europe. It's about 30% or 35% of fat solids. And I'm also adding a teaspoon of orange zest. So I'm actually making half of this recipe because it makes a lot, and I've already prepared some so that you could see. So I'm just going to put this on the heat, and we're going to bring it to a boil till it's nice and hot. So it shouldn't be burning. It should just be scalding. And the reason I'm putting it there is because I need to put it on the stove. So I think it's better if it's there. I have an assistant to help me put it on the stove. And now I have here some chocolate. So it's good to use a chocolate that you like to eat. I generally, in all the recipes that I do, you should make sure that you're using chocolate that you enjoy eating plain. This is about 60% cacao solid. So if you prefer a bitter chocolate, that's great. 60 to 75% works the best. You can also use semi-sweet. I think that's about 50 to 55%. But I do find that the darker the chocolate, the more the cacao solids, the better it sets. So I'm just using my favorite chocolate that I use. I'm in Poland now, so I'm using the one that we have here. Now you're also going to need a little bit of butter, and that will just kind of help make everything creamier. So the reason I love this recipe is it's very easily customizable. You can use any cookie that you like. I like to use plain cookies, but if you've had Biscoff, like the cookie butter type flavored cookie, ginger snaps, those are really nice. Oreos also could be super nice in this recipe. The one thing that you do need to use is the dark chocolate. And I added orange zest, which is now empty, but you can also use, for example, peppermint extract if you like that. You can omit the orange zest. You can even add lemon zest. I'm not sure how the lemon and chocolate flavor combination will be, but either of those work. Any sort of flavoring is nice. Thank you. So I have the cream and the orange zest that's been, it's nice and hot now. So it should just be scalding. It shouldn't be boiling. And to this, we're going to add the chocolate. And we're just going to let it sit for maybe about 30 seconds. I'm just going to get a spatula so that I can stir this together. All right, and I also, when I cook with chocolate, I also like to add a pinch of salt because that tends to bring out the flavor of the chocolate. And also, you know, I come from an Indian household, so we always tend to overspice our or over season our food. And you're just gonna mix this together. I don't know how well you can see it, but you just want to mix it together till it's essentially homogeneous. It will look a bit, if you've made ganache before, you know that in the beginning it looks a bit separated, but then it comes together pretty beautifully. And then it becomes nice and silky. So I'm just going to keep stirring that. You can already see that it's transforming quite nicely. So yeah, if you have any questions, I would love to hear them. Please leave them in the comments about whether you have questions about the book. And I should also mention that I also have a food blog and a YouTube channel. It's called Hot Chocolate Hits. So you can also find me on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, and I post on all three. I don't post super regularly because I'm a full-time student, and for me this is kind of like a fun hobby, but I have been posting for the past 10 years. So I've been doing this since I was in school. So if you can see, it's nice and smooth. And at this point, I'm going to add in the unsalted butter. Now, the reason I like to do it now is because, and it's also, it's at room temperature, but it's a little on the colder side, is because it kind of brings down the temperature of the ganache or of the chocolate mixture. So if it's already quite hot, then it kind of helps with setting it up once it's done. But you can, if you prefer, you can do it in the beginning. It's just at this stage, I've always done it this way. So, and it works fine. So essentially you just want to mix it until the butter has melted completely into the chocolate. This is one of the quickest recipes in the book, actually. It's no bake, super easy. And well, I always say this, but it's yeah, you can make it literally in seconds, which is why it's such a great holiday recipe as well. So when you have, a lot of elaborate things to do, then this is something you can always turn to, and it's also very impressive. All right, so that's pretty well combined. Now we're going to add the biscuits and the walnuts. Now you don't have to use nuts if you don't want to, but if you do, I do like walnuts. You can also use pecans. You can use peanuts. Peanuts would be really nice, I think. And you know how I use the orange zest? If you prefer, you can also add a bit of like peanut butter. I think that would also be really nice. So the measurements for this recipe are in the book, obviously, but if you have joined the webinar and you want to make the recipe and you don't have the book, then you can find me on Instagram at Hot Chocolate Hits and just send me a DM and I'll send you the picture of the recipe. All right, so I don't know if you can see. We're just stirring this together. It won't look like a chocolate salami yet, but you'll just have to trust me here. And I've made this recipe. I think this recipe I made in the book a couple of times to make sure that it was perfect. So trust me, it does work. All right, so that is pretty well combined. So at this stage, I have a piece of parchment paper here. You can also use a piece of plastic wrap if you prefer, but I do like parchment paper because I think it's a bit easier to work with, and also it's a bit firmer than plastic wrap. So then when you put the chocolate log in the fridge, oh look, this always happens. That's okay. not too hot. So what I'm gonna do is just tip all the mixture onto the plastic wrap. Or not the plastic wrap, the parchment paper, sorry. It's been a long day, it's 6 p.m. here, so. All right, now you can see it's kind of like a mountain of chocolate mixture. And this is where it gets, this is the hardest part of this recipe. You need to roll it into a log shape. So what I do is I just kind of wrap it together. Apologies for the noise. And I just kind of mold it into a log shape. Now I said before that I made half of the original recipe. If you're making the full recipe, then it becomes quite a big log. So you might even want to like make 2 separate logs. All right, so this is more or less done. You can kind of, and you know, actually, this is also the reason it's nice to use parchment paper is you can also then gift this itself as a present, as like a salami. All right, so this will go into the refrigerator to set. It sets pretty quickly. I think like about an hour or an hour and a half. So I'm just gonna put that to the side because I already have one made here that has been setting for some time in the fridge. So I'm just gonna unwrap it. Oh, just a little piece broke off. So it's still not like perfectly set, but it's yeah. And then right before you serve it, you can also kind of mold it again if some parts break off. So just very gently peel it off. And yeah, so you can see a piece of it broke off, but usually that's not a huge problem just because we're going to slice it up anyway, unless you're going to serve it in the log shape. So to make this look more like a salami, I also like to dust it with a bit of confectioner's sugar. That helps kind of keep our appearance, and it also kind of makes it more elegant. You can also just roll it in the sugar if you like. All right, so I'm going to try to bring this close so you can see. And now we're gonna slice it into pieces. I'm gonna turn this towards you so that you can see better. So it should set for a bit longer because I made this today. But if you can see, like you can kind of see all the bits and the pieces of the biscuits. So this is kind of like a nice dessert to have on the side, you know, when you're starting or when you're kind of like as something for your cookie box. And it's really easy to make, as you saw. So maybe I'll try a piece for you just so to finish it off. It's really nice. It's still a bit crunchy. So the longer it sits in the fridge, the softer it'll get. And you can really taste the orange zest. So that's why I like to add it, because I love the chocolate orange combination. But obviously, if you prefer, you can omit that. It's a really nice dessert. And I think if you do make it for the holidays, your friends and family will really enjoy it. And since Halloween is coming up, what you can also do is you can use cookies that you find that are orange. So for example, the Oreos with the orange filling, that could be an idea. And then you can serve it for Halloween as well. So that was the chocolate log. It's on page 185 of the cookbook. I don't know if you can see them here. It's available on Amazon to order, and you can also order the ebook. So I hope you enjoyed this demonstration.
So if anyone has any questions, you can type them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And I actually have one to kick things off. Which is, Vedika, you mentioned that this is a seasonal cookbook, that it goes through the seasons. Was there one season that you enjoyed writing recipes for more than the others?
Well, I think all of the recipes I've made so many times that I love them all, but I would have to say as a personal preference, because I love the fall and winter seasons, those ones have been my favorite. Also because the time that I took the recipes were mostly in fall and in winter. So, you know, we had pumpkins in season and I was really able to play with the photographs for that. So I think definitely the like October, November, December chapters are my favorite. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Vedika. How appropriate for right now. I have a question for you as well. Can you talk a little bit about how you got into baking? You said you've been doing this for 10 years, and you're in law school. I'm curious about how you're managing everything with that too.
Yeah, so I started the so basically when I was younger, I always loved food and I loved baking, and the way it started was actually we had American neighbors who would they had all the Betty Crocker cake mixes, and so I'd always try the cake and be like, oh, it's so good, like how did you make it so fluffy? And then we found out it was a mix. So my mom got a few mixes for me, and that's kind of how it started. So I was about 8 at the time, and then YouTube sort of slowly became a thing, and then when I was in middle school, I was like, okay, maybe I'll also try it out. So it kind of started there, and I uploaded more videos, and then I was recruited by Tastemade, which is a video network company, and then my blog sort of grew from there. And so I continued throughout high school, and then once I started university, it slowed down a lot. But it's still something I enjoy doing on the side. And indeed, it's very difficult to balance with studying full time. So usually it ends up taking a bit of a hit when during busy periods, but then it's always something that I can come back to when I do have free time. So, even the book was something that I had in mind for a while, and then I, wrote it as I was doing my studies. So I try to do, every day I do like 1,000 words or something like that, so that I could manage the load. But it was a very challenging process for sure. I wouldn't recommend writing a book on the side of your studies.
That makes total sense. Anna sent me a question asking, you mentioned that you write from your three different cultures. Can you tell us more about Polish baking?
Yeah, so I grew up between Poland, India, and the Netherlands. So I studied my higher education, my bachelor and my master I've done in the Netherlands, and I grew up in Poland. So Polish baking is actually, it's I think European baking in general, it's light desserts. So not super high in sugar, and not very not a lot of cakes and buttercream, but more whipped cream, a lot of meringues, more custards, things like that. And then you also use a lot of fruit in season. So in the fall months we have szatlatka, which is apple pie, which is very popular. And then in the summer you see there's more use of berries with cream cakes. And you also, the one thing that's really popular in Poland is a pączki. It's a donut, and that's actually a recipe that I have in the book. So I don't claim to be like an authority on baking from any of the three cultures. Like even the donut recipe, it's a regular donut recipe that I had, but I infused with jam to make it more like the Polish variant. And you'll see in the book that there are a few recipes like that. Like we have one dessert in Poland called mazurek, which is for Easter, and I have a variant of that in the book. It's similar to a millionaire shortbread. So you have the shortbread, the base, which is a nice texture, and then you have like a dulce de leche caramel in the middle, and then chocolate on top and almonds, and that we have around Easter.
Thank you. There's a question here from Baxter. He asks, how do you have all the different cultures? Do you mix these things up together in a particular meal? Do you use fusion, or do you just sort of respect with different dishes from each one?
So there's a bit of both. So I think I really enjoy fusion. I think even when I cook, I really like that. So in India, obviously we use a lot of different spices, and that inspires a lot of the recipes that I make. So typically my baking is mostly Western, cakes and things like that. In India, the sweets are a bit more, there's not that much use of an oven. It's more over the stovetop. But a lot of the recipes in the book are also, I use the spices that we use in India. So for example, there's an apple cake, but I add cardamom to it. So that kind of takes it to the next level. And then the same thing, there's a recipe for pumpkin cupcakes, but I use chai spices in the recipe. So it adds a unique twist. So I really like playing around with flavor combinations. And there's a Dutch recipe for, it's like cherry hand pies. And typically in the Netherlands, we have that with apple. But instead of apple, I wanted to try with cherry because that was what was in season. So I try to kind of blend them together and see what inspires me. Actually, that's why I like the book so much, is that a lot of it is kind of playing around with flavors.
So I have another question for you, which is, are you working on any new recipes? Is there anything exciting that you've been developing that you would like to tell us about?
Well, I'm still posting recipes on the blog, and I'm doing a bit of freelance work for this another blog called Bigger Bolder Baking, and there's a recipe that's coming up for a chai pumpkin pie. And I've recently also posted a recipe. Oh, I just posted it a few days ago for a chocolate color. So that's like basically an Indian milk fudge. But then I added chocolate to it to make it slightly different. And then on my own blog, there's always recipes coming up. There's always recipes from that. I will have one for like a flourless chocolate cake. And I would also really like to branch out to more savory recipes because my niche is desserts, but I love cooking. So I'd also like to add that to my repertoire as well.
Thank you. Questions come in here from Carol. She asks, can you talk a little bit about the process of making a cookbook?
Right. So making a cookbook has always kind of been a dream of mine. And I was really lucky actually, because my editor found my blog and she reached out to me and she asked whether I wanted to do a cookbook. And I had already had this idea in mind. So when she proposed that, it was something that I was very quick to reply because I already had the idea. So basically what it started out with was her asking if I wanted to do one, and then me kind of creating a proposal with sample recipes and index. And then I sent it to for approval. They liked the idea, they liked the concept, and then I just started. And so with food, I've never written a book, obviously, so it was a different experience, but I have a lot of experience with recipe testing because I've been doing it for the past 10 years. So I had like a list of all the recipes I wanted to include in the book. And then I just, I would make it once and then, tweak it till I was happy with it to the point that it could be included in the book. And well, all the photographs are also mine. So once the recipe was perfect, then I was able to photograph them. So all of the recipes have been tested multiple times. Some of them are also from the blog, and a lot of them are recipes that are kind of like that I've been making for years. So I think it depends for everyone. I think some people who know that they want to write a cookbook will pitch their proposal directly to the editor. But in my case, my editor found me, so I was lucky.
I've got a follow-up question about that, Vedika. How do you get your photographs to be so good? Pictures of food that I take are always awful, and you're doing it yourself. I thought it was normally like a professional photographer that takes these things. Well, maybe you are a professional photographer too.
Yeah, that's really sweet. It's one of my it's one of my passions. I love the photography. I think I mainly shoot with natural light, but I've collected because I love food styling. And the props, if you look at the pictures from the book, like even just, the bowls and the detail in the background, those are all things I've been collecting for years. So I've kind of built up my collection of like things that I use for photography. So for this one, for example, this is like the salted caramel banana muffins, and the base that the muffins are on, that's something I bought years ago. The boards we painted ourselves. So, or like their old cookie tins. So it's just, it's just, I love it, the photography. So that's something that I've also been practicing. If you look at the earlier blog posts that I've made, you can see that the photography is awful. So it was really a work in progress. And I think the book is kind of, I also improved a lot by doing the book because every recipe I wanted it to be really special.
That's really cool that it could be a learning curve like that for you to come out so beautifully.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
I have a question that came in from Steve asking, do you have a taster or tasters who help you out as you're testing recipes?
Yeah, so I'm actually like between countries all the time. So I'm studying in the Netherlands still, but then I come home quite often. And the whole book actually was done when I was home with my parents' house. So that's where I'm now. And that's the reason is because all my equipment is at home. So I'd always come home to test, but I would make things in the Netherlands. So I live in a student house with 7 other people. So usually if I'm baking, it's gone right away. And then, my family also helps with the taste testing. And then we have a lot of neighbors that we just so I make something and then immediately we're getting rid of it because there's too much, especially if you're making one recipe like 4 times for the cookbook, you can't eat all of it. So definitely it doesn't go to waste, but a lot of people benefit from the desserts for sure. And when I was in high school, because I'd bake a lot then too, and I'd always like give it to my friends and the teachers and everything. So I was kind of known for that as well.
Do you have a favorite recipe in the cookbook or a few favorites? I know you said just seasonal ones are the current season.
Well, so all of them, like there's 52 recipes, and I have to say that all of them were a process. So it's hard to pick a favorite when you kind of put everything into every single one. But I have to say, like, if you're asking me on the top of my head which ones I like, there's a mango trifle that's really nice. That's in the summer section. There's also a fruit tart, and what I really like about that one was how I styled it, because I think it's a really easy recipe, but I think with baking as well, it's all about how you style it. If you make something look pretty, it also tastes really pretty, because food is also very like it's very it depends a lot on your senses. So those two I like. Then the chocolate log that I showed you today is also really nice. There's snowball cookies for winter, which are delicious. The pumpkin chai muffins are really nice. It's hard to pick because they're all like, every single recipe that you'll try there is nice because it's been tested multiple times.
So we are just about out of time, but I have one last wrap-up question, which is, are there any sort of baking influences that you can talk about? You mentioned Betty Crocker mixes. Anything else that sort of like was an influence on you in discovering your style as a baker?
I really like Nigella Lawson. Actually, she's my food hero. And Dory Greenspan. Nigella I really like because of the way she talks about food and the way she writes about it. Everything that she cooks, she makes it sound so beautiful, and it's difficult not to want to try the recipe. And then also her recipes are really easy to follow. So I really admire that. And then Dory Greenspan, I really admire for the baking, because she has a lot of really easy and approachable recipes, base recipes that you can then customize. And for me, when I make a recipe, it's all about the story behind the recipe that I really like. And I think with those two, they do that. Influences also, my dad is a big influence because he loves to cook, and cooks all the time. He cooks a lot of Indian food, so I learned a lot about the spices from him as well. It's kind of from everywhere. It's hard to find just a few, but those are a few.
Fantastic. That's great that you can bring all of those things together. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, Vedika, thank you so much. This has been an absolute delight. We got to host Dory Greenspan on this as a virtual event not too long ago. So that was a real pleasure. And thank you so much. This has been absolutely fantastic. And I cannot wait to make a chocolate salami when I get home. I'm very hungry now. Yeah, thank you so much. And everyone, have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you at another Northshire Presents virtual event sometime soon. Take care, everybody.
You can order the
Thank you so much.
at northshire.com.
That's right. Northshire.com. I'll put the link in the chat once more, and you can order it right there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.